everyone, it's Elizabeth from Alpus Astrology at alpusastrology.com. Thanks for joining me today. So today I thought I would do another look at the final total eclipse. So it's not the final eclipse, but it's the final total eclipse that is happening in the signs of Taurus and Scorpio. So we had our first total eclipse happen mid-May of 2022. So this eclipse that I'm speaking about is a total eclipse and therefore more significant because all the orbs are very tight, which basically means the degrees of anything that's conjuncted here is very close together, kind of exerting a lot more energy. And so this is a total eclipse, full moon, and it is at 16 degrees of Taurus, 1 minute. And we are looking at the 8th of November 2022 at 3:04 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So for those folks that are on that time, as well as the East Coast, which will be 3 hours ahead, this is still very early morning we're looking at, right? So one of the things I thought when I looked at this too is we could have some earth-shaking events as well, right? Full moons are all about culminations. But always remember that eclipses can just as easily eclipse something out of your life as eclipse something in. And I'll get to a little bit more of that when I talk about the planets that are also affecting this full moon, namely Uranus. So when we look at Taurus as a sign, as I mentioned, it is a sign of money. It is fixed earth. And it likes to stabilize things. And as I said, we've got the moon that is exalted in it, so it's very happy here. But the other things that we have affecting this is, notably, we have the moon in Taurus, conjuncting, transiting Uranus in Taurus. And Uranus at this time is retrograde. And this is an exact conjunction. So it's a pretty powerful eclipse that we're talking about here. And I guess if I could sum up just the single effect, which is, I feel, the most powerful, the moon conjuncting Uranus, I would say this is overt actions. So there will be some kind of big move going on here with regards to taking actions, and I suspect taking actions over possessions. And this could generalize to something like other countries trying to take over other countries because of the things they possess and the things that they have, the other country values. We also have at this time the moon conjuncting the north nodes. So these are the transiting north nodes. So we have the moon at 16 Taurus and we have the nodes at 13 degrees of Taurus. So this also now speaks to the whole idea of our collective destinies. And certainly if you've got your north nodes in Taurus, specifically say around 16 or 13 degrees, this could be a very significant time in terms of turning points, destiny type things happening to you. But as a collective, we're really talking about, this is a turning point for us. Now the moon can represent the people, right? I've spoken about this before in my videos. So I see this when it's conjunct the north nodes, that this is truly a time when we change our destiny in humanity. So there's going to be a lot of significant things happening here. Now, before I go on, I want to say that this eclipse is predicated by something. It's predicated basically the first week of August 2022 by Uranus itself conjuncting the north nodes. It's at a slightly different degree. It's at 18 degrees of Taurus. But hey, that's awfully close to the 16 degrees of this total eclipse. So what does that mean? I would say watch the first week of August to see what happens then, because that, I think, will be some indication of what I see as a big blow up happening here around the 8th of November. Let's just take the whole month of November. Now, the other thing, too, about eclipses is you can feel these eclipses a month in advance. And certainly if you've got anything significant, and that would be your sun, your moon, your ascendant, your midheaven, or conglomeration of planets hovering around this 16 degrees, especially of Taurus and or the opposite sign of Scorpio, you can really expect some major changes. And you'll rarely hear me talking about this in my videos saying, expect major changes. Expect major changes. And we're going to feel it as a collective too. And certainly when we look back historically, this November 2022 will be a big standout in history. All right. So let's go back now to look at some of the other things that are affecting this eclipse. We have the moon, which will be widely squaring Saturn in Aquarius. So here we're speaking about the effects that this total eclipse wants to exert on specifically probably values of any sort and possessions, is squaring with this Saturn, and Saturn is saying not so fast. So there's going to be some resistance. Where's that resistance going to be coming from? Mainly from the old guard. That's essentially what Saturn stands for, right? Is the old ways of doing things, the archaic ways of doing things. Big resistance here. It is a wide square, so it's not like it's an exact, but you're still going to have this resistance from those who hold the power, who are above you, and these could equate on an individual basis, our managers and people above us, right? And even for some, our parents, right? It can also indicate that as well. So now let's look at, because it's a full moon, let's look at the opposite sign of Scorpio where the sun is going to be. Now this sun is going to be conjunct Mercury, and it's going to be exact. The sun will be conjuncting the south nodes, right? Because we got the moon in the opposite sign conjuncting the north. So this is really speaking to us letting go of things still. But it's still bringing in the new destiny because this full moon is conjuncting the north nodes of the moon, not the south nodes. The emphasis is we've got to move forward on this new destiny path with regards to our values, the money we have, the value we have of ourselves. Now, when you combine the sun conjunct Mercury, it really also says that there's going to be a lot of talking and not a lot of listening. And especially since this is a full moon and Uranus is involved, there's going to be a lot of excitability and a lot of triggers, literal emotional triggers going off as well. So this is one of the reasons I wanted to make this in advance, because especially for those folks that have anything significant in your chart affecting this, you really want to prepare yourself in advance to at least be expecting maybe some things coming in. And you may even surprise other people. If you've got something that's very close in these degrees, 16 degrees, I would say that you may surprise yourself too. With Uranus, it's all about surprises. You surprising, and then surprisings coming from the outside. Now, typically, you would have surprises coming from the outside because you have been resisting letting go of things, in particular, letting go of things like possessions, values, maybe even money, that type of thing. And then things come in from the outside to sometimes shake you up, or just some big zap saying, taking that away from you. So also because this is about money, right? This whole Taurus Scorpio axis is about money. And in particular, with Taurus ruling the second house, it's the money that you make. It also rules real estate too. So I was thinking as I was preparing this could be the month when that whole real estate bubble bursts. Or at least burst to some extent that over the next few months, things start getting back to normal. I'm not an expert with regards to astrological predictions of, our money markets or anything like that. I'm just kind of reading the basic stuff as I know it. So for those folks that really do want to know more about that, check in with experts that specialize in that area. But this was pretty obvious to me that there's some probably shakeup, and I thought the most obvious one was our real estate market, where this may be the signal in November, December time that lasts, for the next 6 months or so, influencing that whole bubble thing. We also have a wide conjunction of the Sun also with Venus, which is in Scorpio. And so this gives another effect too. This kind of, a Venus in Scorpio tends to be, this is like that revenge thing where, and a woman being scorned type thing can happen, or extremely deep, emotionally laden feelings could also happen. So again, if you've got something around the 16-degree mark, of specifically this would be the Scorpio, but it doesn't matter. It can also be the opposite sign, of course, that's involved in this, where the moon is in Taurus. But this certainly deepens the feelings, right? And if we bring that out to a collective level, this could have, it could actually have females being very angry and not be willing to let go of certain things. It's wide, so it'll have not a really direct effect of extreme, but certainly Venus being in Scorpio and the Sun being in Scorpio, it heightens those emotions, right? Scorpio is always viewed as a secretive sign. It has a lot of depth to its emotions, and it doesn't easily give up control. So that's the other thing as well. And, you know, we've had Uranus here in Taurus since 2007. And like I said, when we have that exact conjunction of Uranus with the North Nodes, mainly during that first week of August, I would say just keep an eye out what's happening, you know, in your personal life as well as the collective, because that's going to play out again in a big way at this November total full moon eclipse. But certainly our values are going to be shaken up. The financial security systems, even our own security can be shaken up. And Taurus also literally rules the earth, right? And that's why I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we could have some earth-shaking events happening as well. The other thing that we have happening, well, there's a couple of other things. So this, if you haven't figured it out yet, this total eclipse is just like a non-stop, surprise a minute type of events, unusual things, maybe unusual people popping up in our individual lives as well as collectively. But there's so much happening at this eclipse. This is one of the rare eclipses where I actually will say almost every planet is somehow involved in this eclipse. So we have Jupiter, which is going to be at 29 degrees of Pisces, 12 minutes. And so this is at what's called an anaretic degree. And the anaretic degree, especially at 29 degrees, remember there's 30 degrees in every sign, right? So 0 degrees and 29 degrees represent critical degrees for a planet, any planet. And so at this eclipse, we have Jupiter. Generally speaking, Jupiter's like Santa Claus, wants to bring us lots of gifts and lots of benefits. But what it also does is it expands anything it touches. And at this final degree, it's operating at an extremely powerful, culminating level in terms of its energy. And it is also forming a square to the galactic center. When I look at the galactic center, I really like things to be as a conjunction, to be honest, but I couldn't overlook the fact that this really does form a square with the galactic center as well, which is a big energy center for us, right? And so I think that the other thing that this could bring in, combined with this whole Sun opposite Uranus, is we could have some restlessness happening, increased restlessness. So you may feel something maybe towards the end of October time period when we've got actually Mars going retrograde in Gemini that keeps getting amped up. And then we'll see in the collective things being amped up as well. And surprising actions are going to happen from others. This also on an individual level with the Sun opposite Uranus and then this culminating energy of Jupiter. There could be some accidents happening as well. So do take care for those folks that have, degrees around this, for any accidents that could happen as well. Jupiter also rules the law, and it rules foreign people, foreign things. It's higher learning, like universities. So I saw all these potentially being brought up as well, where maybe there's going to be something happening with some surprising stuff that's going to happen with regards to laws, as well as a big foreign connection. So I saw this Jupiter at 29 degrees throwing in almost like a lightning bolt. And it's just a whole other energy. Almost like throwing down the gauntlet. That's what I see this as. So if there's going to be any kind of actions taken from, and I was thinking of countries that want to take over other countries, this is going to be the time. That gauntlet's going to be thrown down, and there's going to be a lot of restlessness, an urge to take action, and lots of outbursts too. And like I said, not a lot of listening, but a lot of talking and a lot of moving, right? Moving things forward. So coupled with this, we do have a retrograde Mars that's in Gemini. And this retrograde Mars is going to stay there till approximately mid-January 2023. And guess what? It's squaring Neptune. And it's widely squaring that Jupiter I just spoke about. So again, this is really pushing actions into place where there's going to be resistance, but there's still going to be pushing with that Mars retrograde. And I saw that Mars retrograde. This is more on a collective level, by the way, because I think it's going to be favorable for some individuals. I saw this as covert plotting and planning. And so this, even though I'm talking about the total eclipse here, this Mars retrograde literally happens at the end of October, the start of it in Gemini. So we could literally see something happening there too at the end of October, where some kind of plotting and planning starts, but there's this push for aggression. And there's a lot of deceitful actions. Physical energies for individuals may be very low with the square to Neptune and the square to Jupiter. And we could have some religious zealots come out at this time too. But certainly there's this whole idea of plotting and planning covertly and deceitful actions. That Neptune on Mars I did not see that as a good thing. And then it being amplified by another square with Jupiter. So I see a big foreign connection here. And a lot of smoke and mirrors again. Neptune can also represent anything to do with our media. And it doesn't have to be media on, our TV. This could be any type of media. So again, be careful what you take as truth. Jupiter also represents truth. I'd say there's going to be a lot of twisting of the truth here. And we're going to have to really, as individuals, pay attention to what's going on. But it's going to be surprise a minute, action left, right, and center coming out of nowhere, out of the woodwork on a collective level for sure. We'll hardly have a time to react. And that's why I'm making this video, so we can maybe prepare ourselves a little bit with regards to how we would react to certain situations should they happen in November, and what maybe planning you need to do. And in particular, we're talking, I guess, about planning. I mentioned real estate, but anything to do with our monies, right? And certainly protecting our possessions, and also protecting the value of ourselves, right? Of valuing ourselves and protecting our values. What are our values? Our collective values as well as our individual values. All that's going to be up at this total eclipse. We do have Venus will be widely squaring Saturn, but nicely, we're going to have Venus trine Neptune. And remember that we've got a ruler of this eclipse, right? And the ruler of this eclipse in Taurus is Venus. So we really look to Venus, and Venus, of course, is called the lesser benefic, as an influence along with Uranus. So this now speaks to what? It speaks to our money for sure, but it also speaks to our values, and it speaks to love, right? And it also speaks to women. I mean, that's what Venus represents too. So there's this kind of almost a polarized energy going on with the square to Saturn, where the old, that's Saturn, is causing problems and challenges for the female. But then the female has this beautiful trine to Neptune, which is really saying, I've got great compassion and I want spirituality to be part of my life, that type of thing. So there's this run-in of these two energies, and we're still talking about the eclipse here with Venus. So I say let's go with the positive energy, which is, of course, Venus trining Neptune. This could bring in also, because we're talking about the north nodes here, right, as a general overarching influence with regards to that new destiny for us all. For some folks, you may have literally your soulmate materialize unexpectedly at this time. That's Venus trine Neptune. And I say that more powerfully in November here and for the 6 months following, because we've got this major tie-in of the full moon with the north nodes, which points to our destiny path, right? As always, I would love to do your chart. I would say this is another time when it might be a good idea to get your individual chart done, especially if you've got north nodes or your sun or your ascendant in Taurus. Scorpio too, but Taurus in particular, because this is a Taurus eclipse, right? Just getting back to this whole Jupiter again and being at the anaretic degree and also forming this square to Mars. This is going to increase risk-taking and this desire to do it now, right? So Mars squaring Jupiter, which is expanding everything, is going to say, yeah, but I want to do this now. I would say for those folks that are considering taking some risks, it could turn out in November, but I wouldn't necessarily pick the month of November around this total eclipse to take big risks, because you're going to have this trigger with this anaretic degree where Jupiter is, where I got to do it now. I got to press that button now. I got to pull that trigger. It's got to happen now. What I would say is this: before you do that, even though you feel you got to do it, and this is good advice, of course, at any time, but these are all going to be amped up energies, right? Pause and consider the future of these actions that you might take. Okay, so just maybe remember that phrase that I've given you. If you do around November just feel this overriding challenge that I have to do this now, there's no time now, I have to do it now. Just remember, ask yourself, when I take this action, when I take this risk, what do I think is going to happen as a result in the future? And make up that list, right? The pros and the cons. And if it all seems looking good, then go for it. It'll also increase, especially on a collective level, a lot of arrogance. So you can expect that happening around this time too, where people are just not going to care. And I would say that's going to be on a collective level, perhaps in some governments or even just individuals who just say, I don't really care. I want to do this and I'm going to do it, whether you like it or not. That kind of thing is going to be going on too. I mean, that goes on anyway throughout our lives, but there's going to be this huge concentration of energy where arrogance will be strewn all over the place. So certainly it's a good time for those to not be one of those with, like the chicken with the head cut off. You want to be one of those that are looking carefully at what's going on here, right? Just finishing off with that whole Venus squaring Saturn. It's a wide square, but it's still a square. This could be a good time for self-reflection, right? That's what Saturn can also give you, pause for thought. And don't be too hard on yourself, though, because Saturn can really exert this, take this responsibility on, or give a harsher a view of reality. But because we've got that Venus trining Neptune shimmering in the background, I saw this more as Don't be too hard on yourself or your relationships, but to reflect, right? Take this time to reflect on, is this what I want? This all ties into, this eclipse ties into your values, especially value of self, right? So you could ask yourself that too. If you're in a relationship and you've got some doubts, because Saturn can bring in doubts, ask yourself, is this person valuing me? Do I actually feel valued here? Right? Kind of an easy thing to ask. Sometimes it's difficult for us to actually know whether or not, because sometimes we also get, and especially with the Venus trining Saturn, there could be a little bit of fogginess and rose-colored glasses on. Ask people that you trust, but do ask people that you trust. Don't just rely on anybody, right? At this time. Well, the other thing that I decided to look at was, I don't do this very often, but I decided to look at sort of like famous people or celebrities. Is there anybody that has, and there's a lot of people, dead and alive, that have a birthday somewhere around the 8th of November. But standing out for me, I picked two people basically, but the big standout was Gordon Ramsay. So Gordon, listen up. But the other one was David Muir, of course, who is one of the well-respected newscasters on ABC News. But I'll start off here with Gordon Ramsay, which is really interesting. Talk about a packed chart for him. I'm just going to say that he has almost every single thing in his chart being affected by this total eclipse in Taurus. He has the transiting moon and Uranus opposite exactly his sun, opposite his natal Venus, and widely opposite his natal Neptune, conjunct his natal north nodes. And then he has the transiting Mars, which is retrograde, is conjunct his ascendant in Gemini. Whoa. And then we've also got the moon and Uranus, the sun and Mercury, all squaring his ascendant, or all squaring his midheaven rather, which is in Aquarius. So wow, talk about when I looked at that, my head was spinning. And it could be that it's a culminating effect for Gordon Ramsay, where he everything literally changes around for him, but he could have some difficulties with regards to money or love. That could come into play here. And there may be some challenge for him in the public that he has to deal with as well. But big changes, because he's got his midheaven and his ascendant big time being affected here. And of course his sun as well. So good luck, Gordon. Maybe you're just going to have some major change of good fortune happen your way, where a lot of endings will happen and you can start on a whole new life or a whole new chapter. Maybe we're going to see a whole new Gordon Ramsay, that he'll earn his money in a different way as he announces a different value system for himself. That could be really positive for him. For David Muir, it's a little less dramatic. The moon and Uranus will be opposite his natal sun exactly. He will have Mars retrograde conjuncting the moon, his moon, and then he will also have Venus conjuncting his Mercury at 20 degrees of Scorpio. We don't have a birthday time for David Muir, so it's difficult to generalize much more than that. For him, this could just also be a major change for him with regards to his emotional life. Maybe he'll announce, I don't know if he's married, I don't really follow him specifically, but maybe he'll announce that he's getting married or something like that. Or if he is married, maybe some new beginning in his life will happen. Or maybe his career will take on a different path because he values either himself or values things generally in a different way, and he takes a new tack with regards to how he earns his money. Because he does have Venus involved here too, and Venus is conjunct the Mercury, right? So it's some kind of announcement. Well, good luck to both of them. So I'm just going to finish up here for the introduction part of this video with the Sabian symbol before I go on to each of your individual ascendants and sun signs, where I'll spend a few minutes for each of you and give you my take of what's going to happen. But remember, anything I say is just my general idea of where I think things could go for you. You have every right and free will to make your own decisions, right? That's always there for you. All right, so this Sabian symbol, we always round up the degrees, and this is just 1 degree, 1 minute here, right? 16 degrees, 1 minute. So we do have to round up to 17 degrees of Taurus. And this was interesting. This is a symbolic war between swords and torches. It's refusing to depend on the past by the seeker. It turns the warrior and fighting against the great war. So, well, what does that all mean? It kind of goes back to, and he does say this, in the Sabian symbol book, that it's the Bhagavad Gita. That story is very much illuminated in terms of this 17 degree mark of Taurus. So here we're really talking about literal war versus spiritual war. And so this is, I guess, really speaking to the fact that there's going to be a contingent of people who want war, and that's the way they want to resolve things, and another contingent of folks that say we have to take the higher road here. We have to pull in great compassion, great spirituality, and rely on that to change things, as opposed to using the sword, right? So the sword refers to traditional ways of we talk about wars, whereas the torch really refers to the torch of, our inner spiritual lives, right? So there may be, again, a dichotomy here at this total eclipse, not only inside ourselves, but between groups of people, right? Right. Okay, I think that kind of sums up what I felt was going to emerge at this total eclipse. I love hearing from everybody, of course, so we can always have conversations back and forth. And certainly I would like to hear from people who specifically have, say, something around the 16 to the 18 degree mark of Taurus. If anything is happening to them, say that first week of August, prior to this total eclipse, it'd be interesting for you to share that with us, to just maybe give us an idea of what other things could be happening at the total eclipse in November. All right, because this is a Taurus eclipse of significance, we're going to start off with you, Taurus. And so Taurus, this obviously is going to be in your first house. And the first house always refers to all about you, everything inside you, everything around you. So if we looked at it from a surface standpoint, some Taurus folks may be making a complete makeover where they completely change everything about themselves. And they may do this in an unexpected way because we've got the influence of Taurus. So there may be some Taurians that really surprise us. And maybe one of those is going to be Gordon Ramsay. But the influence of Uranus in your sign certainly can bring shake-ups, wake-ups, and big changes that you really need, that maybe you've been waiting for your whole life. But it can also bring unexpected things that are unpleasant. And so I know some of my clients, and you know who you are, have been suffering greatly, where unexpected events have been coming from the outside on a regular basis, and they've had to deal with these in the best way they can. And I would say rolling with the punches, even though it's not going to be easy for some folks, is the best way to handle this. This truly will lead to at least some Taurians to be in a very enlightened state once this ends. And I guess that's the best thing to remind yourself of, right? You also have the north nodes that are in your sign, the transiting north nodes in here. So for Taurians especially, this is a turning point in your life, because even though we are going to have the north nodes come back into your sign in approximately 18 to 20 years. So transiting north nodes cycle around 18 to 20 years. So you're going to have these come around again, Taurus. But you're not going to have Uranus there conjuncting them, right? And conjuncting the eclipses. So I would say for Taurus, this truly is a momentous time in your life to change your destiny path and get on whatever destiny path you're meant to be on. It speaks to anything Venus, so that would be your values. And I'm always on about valuing yourself. So for those folks that know they're not being valued or not valuing yourself or allowing people in your life that are not valuing you, know that Uranus is going to take that out. Why not make the decision to remove it yourself? And that's the real effect that is positive with Uranus. You can just get rid of stuff yourself. It's when you don't do that, that stuff comes in from the outside to clear the decks. And sometimes this is very dramatic for some folks. But this could bring in, for some enlightened Taurians, major enlightenment. I mean, epiphanies. And there could be more than one epiphany for you, Taurus, where one after the other, you get it. And you may even provide some enlightenment for other people too. That's the other thing that you can do with regards to this. You know, Taurus is the master builder. It could even be viewed as the farmer. So there may be some Taurus or Taurus ascendants that literally help change our farming practices, right? Because Taurus does go back to anything to do with the land. It can be things that are inside the land as well, but that tends to really be Scorpio and Pluto's territory when we're talking about minerals and things in the earth. But that could also come to light at this time too. Good luck, Taurus. Love to hear from you, of course. All right, next we're going to do Gemini. So Gemini, this total eclipse happens in your 12th house. And so for those that are enlightened Geminis, I would say this is an ideal opportunity to get involved in meditation, to truly try to get into that transcendent type of energy where meditation and opening yourself to enlightenment, this can be brought through, say, things like Kundalini Yoga, for those that might be interested in that. If you ever think of visiting an ashram to truly work with enlightened people in enlightened places, this would be a great eclipse to schedule something in November for yourself. You probably will get a lot out of it. Now, Uranus is a big shaker and waker, but because it's in the 12th house with this eclipse, and it's a total eclipse, so it's kind of like a culmination, it could be that you've had a lot of exciting things happen in your life, Gemini, and you just need a rest. So you may make this unexpected announcement or decision saying, look, I've had way too much excitement going on, way too much energy in my brain especially, right? You kind of rule the brain and thinking. So Uranus here in the 12th house, you could just say, I got to take a big rest. And that maybe surprises a few people. But the other thing that you've got layering on top of this, Gemini, is you have Mars retrograde in Gemini going on in your sign right the way through mid-January 2023. Now, I see this on an individual level as a positive thing. We're taking energy, that's Mars, and negotiating could be one thing. For some Geminis that say write, whether it's literal, like writing a book, it could be some folks writing maybe early education books, that you'll go back and maybe do editing or reviewing or submit for review. That's the type of energy I see here for you, Gemini, where there's going to be you taking a second look more than likely it'll be at some form of writing or some form of messaging of some sort. Now, Gemini, rules the twin. It's the twins, right? That's the sign. That's the glyph that we've got going on here. But as I've mentioned before, this Gemini glyph also appears to be a door. It's also the Roman numeral for the number 2. So it seems to me that there may be 2 people involved here, where you have to work with a couple people here, not just yourself. This isn't just you exerting your changes or your revisions. It's working with somebody else to make things happen. But I also feel, because this is such a fateful time, right? It could also be a time where another door opens for you in November unexpectedly, that allows you to do something maybe behind the scenes with regards to, I really feel this is writing and messaging of some sort. It can be advertising as well. So for those in the advertising world, it may have you going back and maybe looking at a previous advertising campaign and deciding to use it in some different way. All right. Good luck, Gemini. All right, Cancer. Cancer, this is in your 11th house. This is a nice place to have anything happen, basically. It does refer to the friends that you have, the groups that you belong to, your hopes and wishes. And for those folks that actually have their own business, the 11th house tends to be where you make your money from your own business. And the reason we say that is because the 11th house is directly opposite the 5th house, which represents, amongst many other things, your own business. Now, the other favorable thing is that this eclipse sextiles your sign, Cancer. So it says to me there may be some opportunities here, at the very least, for you to earn money through having your own business. Can't go wrong on that. You could also have opportunities here to maybe let go of some friends that maybe no longer fit into your life and then take on new ones. It could have you opportunities to join new groups, even though this is a total eclipse. The other thing that the 11th house represents is anything kind of electronic to do with the social media. So it could be that this total eclipse, because don't forget, eclipses are wild cards. They can be new beginnings too. So maybe you're going to let go of some way of dealing with social media and take on another way, maybe a new way. But this could increase for sure unexpected things going on in social media that you use that might actually be very favorable for you with regards to your destiny path. You're certainly, Cancer, going to be given opportunities here. And I think it's to do with social media, however you use it, and everyone will be using it individually, to probably make better changes and bigger changes for you to earn more money in your business. And certainly for those folks that maybe are thinking of starting their own business, even though this is a total eclipse, if it makes sense to you, Cancer, this might be a good trigger where you start your own business and you say, wow, I see where I can make money here. Good luck, Cancer. All right, Leo, this is in your 10th house. So, you've also been, entertaining Uranus, unexpected surprises, unexpected people coming in, surprising events, also in the 10th house. So some Leos have had some real challenges with regards to surprising things happening in their career that they didn't account for. And certainly with Uranus, the best laid plans of mice and men type thing can go awry. And so it's very difficult, Leo, for you in your career to really, get a foothold and say, this is where I'm going, because you're going to be having Uranus here for a little while longer, upsetting the apple cart. But remember, when Uranus does that, just remind yourself that there's a reason for it long term. A lot of times when Uranus takes something away, we get upset over it. That's also the sort of territory of Uranus upsets. But I can tell you, I've personally had some major run-ins with Uranus in my chart over the decades. And every single time I remember being upset about it. But then long term, I look back and say, my goodness, thank God that was jettisoned out of my life, because now I'm in such a better position. And that truly will be the same for you too, Leo. So for those that are having difficulties in their career, hang in there. Let go of things that are leaving your life. Let them go and wait for new things that are better for you to come in. You also have Saturn that is opposite your sign, right? It's in Aquarius. Now it's going to end that next sort of mid next year, 2023, where then it'll go into Pisces. But for right now, at this eclipse, it's opposite. And you also have Pluto next year, just as a reminder, that will be going into Aquarius. Now, Pluto will only get to the sort of 0 degrees in some minutes of Aquarius. So for those Leos, you really would have had to have been born at the beginning of your sign to be affected by Pluto opposing your sign next year and into the next year, by the way. But the other thing is this eclipse squares your sign, Leo. So I guess as a sign, Leo could have some challenges here with the Saturn opposition. The square from this total eclipse could happen as well. But I will say this. Like I said, Uranus can bring in good things too, surprisingly. So just try to focus on the fact that you could have some real surprising beneficial things come in for you that you did not expect happen in your career. So certainly if you've got anything that is in Taurus, natally, Leo, like your Saturn, for instance, if your Saturn there, you could unexpectedly have a lot of things that have been holding you back, that's Saturn, or responsibilities, poof, be taken away. And your career and your career path open up wide. So it doesn't all have to be negative. But Leo, you will have a few challenges and you will have some unexpected things come in. So just prepare as best you can for that, right? Always have a scenario A and a scenario B, especially with regards to your career. Take care, Leo. All right, so for Virgo, you have it in a nice place too. You've got it in your 9th house. And the 9th house rules quite a few things. It rules foreign people, foreign lands, foreign things. It rules higher education. So it could be, for some Virgos, they are ending maybe some higher education around the November time period. But eclipses are wild cards. So it could have some Virgos taking up some advanced education for themselves and moving forward with that. And maybe it's an unexpected thing. Maybe you unexpectedly get accepted in a prestigious school that you applied to that you never thought you would get into. That may happen for some Virgos as well. The other thing it rules too is travel. And travel could be featured for some Virgos in a very positive way, where maybe you decide to take the trip of a lifetime and it all comes together unexpectedly for you. Like I said, eclipses can be wild cards, and it can bring things in and it can take things out, or it can do both those things. Now, the nice thing about this total eclipse for you, Virgo, is that it trines your sign. So trines are favorable energy. It's one of the most favorable, it is the most favorable energy that you can have happening. So this brings in a more stable energy pattern for you with regards to this eclipse. So if there's something that and this also rules the law of the 9th house. So all these areas that I've just mentioned, if one or all of them are up for you, you could have some real favorable things come in for you at this November total eclipse that benefit you in those areas. So how can you use it? Use the month of November and the 6 months following to either push in those areas and expect benefits. That would be what I would do. At its highest, the 9th house really asks us to live in the world of our higher consciousness, right? So that's the ninth house is ruled by Sagittarius, which is ruled by the planet Jupiter. So this is really looking to our future as well, right? So you may get some indication here, some maybe flash of some sort. Maybe you'll get an epiphany of what your future could be. And with that favorable energy coming in, you may unexpectedly get help to make that future happen, right? Now, the other thing that you've got happening here is you truly do have Jupiter and Neptune in your opposite sign of Pisces. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing with the opposition. It could be an activation here with the trine happening, right? Where you harness those energies. This is great inspiration. When we put Jupiter and Neptune together, this is great inspiration. Now, it will be sitting in your opposite house, right? Which will be in your third. And so there could be some very inspirational messages come through that help you make something happen unexpectedly in that ninth house. It could be something as simple and wonderful as being able to take a wonderful trip, perhaps around the world, or certainly to a foreign place. That will be delightful for sure. Take care, Virgo. For Libra, we have this eclipse happening in your 8th house. And just as a reminder, Libra, next year you are going to be hosting eclipses not only in your sign, but in your opposite sign of Aries. So you've got a lot of changes coming up next year. I would say for you, Libra, this should be the final kind of 6 months of 2022, should be a preparation stage. And this eclipse speaks to a preparation stage with regards to 8th house matters. So what are they? The 8th house, generally speaking, talks about shared resources. So that would be anything to do with maybe checking accounts or savings accounts that you have with other people, maybe your spouse. It also speaks to your own investments. So I would say this is a good time, Libra, to really seek out maybe financial advice, or at least have a financial advisor look at all your investments. Or if you're an expert in this area, take a good look at them. This eclipse is going to be highlighting something in that area. You would have to have something else significant in here in terms of planets in that, to have an inheritance come in. But certainly an inheritance of some sort, or an inheritance-like thing could happen for you, Libra, either in a big way or small way. Like I said, it all depends what else you have, either in the 8th house, so that would be anything in Taurus, or anything directly aspecting that 8th house to actually have an inheritance happen. But I mean, if you generalize inheritance to something more common, you could have a loan approved at this time, maybe unexpectedly. Maybe you get more money approved too in a loan. So that just gives you another idea, Libra, of what could happen for you too. Or maybe you end up paying off a mortgage. Maybe you really do use this total eclipse full moon as a culmination and ending of a mortgage that you have or a loan that you have. And it all plays out as a really good thing for you. Whatever you do take a good look at your finances and investments over this time period of November prior to 2023 when you got the eclipses happening. Because once you start having eclipses in your sign, Libra, there's no real time to think, right? So this is giving you an idea here of get those things sorted out, anything that needs to be sorted out in this area. Now, there's two other things that could be affected here by the 8th house. One of them is your psychological self. So for some folks, this may be an ending of some kind of therapy that you've been doing that really has helped you deal with psychological issues, right? That could be there too. But the other thing that the 8th house represents is sex. And so this could be somebody is eclipsed into your life that is a serious relationship. So we look at the 7th house as this house of a serious relationship, i.e. marriage. But then that goes on into the 8th house where it becomes a committed, serious, deep relationship, right? So that could also be up for some Librans as well. Now, you have a sextile formed with that Mars retrograde in Gemini that I spoke about in my introduction. So you may have some opportunities with regards to writing as well. Writing, messaging, anything to do with that, or contracts. You'll have some favorable opportunities. So maybe this will be tied in with some investments for you, Libra, this whole Mars retrograde, which is what I'm talking about now. And that started at the end of October and goes right the way through to mid-January 2023. So this could also signal for you, some Librans, successful negotiations with regards to investments, right? Or at least opportunities for successful negotiations. But those negotiations, by the way, Libra, may not manifest, say, in a final signed copy until mid-January 2023. Again, use this for planning. Take care, Libra. All right, Scorpio, so you and Taurus have been highlighted a lot in eclipses. You, of course, Scorpio, were highlighted at the first total eclipse. So we only have 2 total eclipses that are happening in 2022. You hosted the first one mid-May of this year, 2022. And so there would have been some kind of shakeup with regards to your life at that time. But this particular eclipse in Taurus falls in your opposite sign, and therefore we know that it's your 7th house that's highlighted. The 7th house is where the north nodes are. You're hosting the south nodes. So this in some way, Scorpio, is pointing to partnerships to do with the destiny path you're supposed to be on. Now, with the south nodes in your sign, you're supposed to let go of some aspects here of yourself in order to embrace a partnership way of doing things, partnerships, ideas. And so this could be a tug for you. This could be not all straightforward for some Scorpios, where you're having to look at the other, right? So the 7th house represents typically a marriage partner, but it's also business partnerships. It's any other, and it's clients too. So you're going to be dealing with, in some way, Scorpio, the other. We have Venus in Scorpio at this time, and we have Mercury in Scorpio at this time. Now, both these planets will be in your sign, obviously, but they will also be opposing this eclipse. So this really speaks to, for some Scorpios, the whole realm of Venus. Again, going back to the fact that Venus rules this eclipse. So for some Scorpios, you may have a breakup happen. But just as likely, you could have a marriage partner materialize that becomes, to you, a fated thing, that you look to them and say, this is it. This is the person that I'm supposed to be with here. It can also bring in somebody for you that unexpectedly maybe communicates with you, because we've got, at this eclipse, we've got both Venus and Mars relatively close together in Scorpio. There could be some kind of communications happening here. Now, specifically, we talk about Venus, we're talking about, females, or at least the feminine element. So it could be that a female will somehow be instrumental at this eclipse, maybe to highlight something with regards to that partner. Maybe you'll learn something about a partner through a female at this time too. And it doesn't have to be something negative, Scorpio. So don't view these things as negative. It just means that you're going to have to be taking into account the other. So just remember that as you go through this total eclipse, Scorpio. And also that, you're going to be embracing a future destiny here. So there may actually be some Scorpios that are planning for a wedding at this time, maybe even in November. Even though this is a full moon total eclipse, this could be a good thing for you because it's happening in your 7th house. And for those that are getting married, I wish you lots of luck and very best wishes to both of you. Take care, Scorpio. Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, this is in your 6th house. And it also has Jupiter retrograde at 29 degrees in Pisces. And then, of course, we also have Neptune retrograde in Pisces too. Both those planets are going to be squaring Sagittarius. Now, you're going to have something around the 24-degree mark or 29-degree mark of Pisces or Sagittarius to have an exact square. So this is just going to be you having to think outside the box with regards to some sixth house matters, is what I would say. And you're also going to have an opposition with regards to that Mars retrograde that's going to be in Gemini, right? Gemini is opposite your sign, Sagittarius. So there could be some kind of actions going on with regards to your seventh house as well, right? So let's go back to the sixth house. So this eclipse happening in your sixth house could very simply say a new job is coming your way. Or if you don't work, some new habit that you take up or day-to-day activity that you take up comes to light at this time. The other thing the sixth house represents, of course, is your health. So certainly for those Sagittarius that have something come up in November with regards to your health, whether it is small or big, I would say take care of it, because you can have the influence over this next 6 months favorably helping you with your destiny path. Let's go back again to the fact that this eclipse activates our collective and our individual destiny path, right, in a favorable way. It may do it unexpectedly, though, Sagittarius. So do take care. The other thing that this activates, because we have the galactic center is in Sagittarius and it's hovering around the 27 to 29 degree mark of Sagittarius, you also have that square happening and kind of activated in your sign as well. So I would say a good thing for you to be doing, Sagittarius, at this time is to really look at what is working in your day-to-day job, what isn't working, and then look carefully at your health, what is working and what isn't working, and make changes as appropriate. I mean, you know, Uranus here can also bring you great enlightenment. You could also have an epiphany of some sort with regards to your health, where you say, I just got to change this. Why didn't I do it before? Right. You're still going to have, you know, direct effects, Sagittarius, for anything major to happen. So we're looking again at this eclipse of around the 16 degree mark of Taurus. So we really would have to have something around that 16 degree, especially of anything to do with Sagittarius itself, because it forms squares, or anything to do with, say, Pisces, because that forms a square too. But I think you're just going to be sorting stuff out here. That's what I saw for Sagittarius. And that you may get some epiphanies or enlightenment happening around this time as well. That will truly open up new destiny paths with regards to everything sixth house, right? Now, the other thing in sort of Hellenistic or ancient astrology, the sixth house represents those burdens that we've taken on that really are not ours. And so you may also get, because Uranus is involved here, an enlightenment of a burden maybe you've carried all your life, where you say, why am I carrying this? And then that's a positive thing where you can take that off your plate successfully and move on with your destiny. You may also see that there's been a block in your life with regards to maybe something sitting in your life that wasn't meant to be there, that you felt you had to take care of. You get this enlightenment saying, I don't have to do that. And you get it out of your path, and you're able to take and harness the full effects of this eclipse, which is to put you on your destiny path. Take care, Sagittarius. All right, so we move on to Capricorn. Capricorn, this is I thought this was really nice that you've got it in your fifth house. I personally like the fifth house and the 11th house. Those are kind of my two favorite houses. So the 11th house is opposite the fifth house, of course. And the other nice thing that this does, of course, is this eclipse trines. You're both earth signs. So you've got some real favorable energy coming your way regarding what? All fifth house matters. Now, the fifth house does rule a lot of things. Generally speaking, I always speak to the fifth house as being our authentic self. So this is really giving you lots of energy to express who you really are. And so do that. It also expresses our creative side. So there may be some opportunities that come up unexpectedly, Capricorn, that allow you to express not only your authentic self, but bring in this creative things. And remember, we don't have to go around painting pictures or drawing pictures to be creative. I'm talking about the whole general creativity type thing. But this is pretty significant. There could be something very unexpected that comes in for some Capricorns here. Now, it could also be unexpected pregnancies. But again, we got the trine happening. So there could be something that you've wanted to get pregnant and you get pregnant for some Capricorns. Because the fifth house represents children, of course, right? And because we've got the moon involved here, we're talking about motherhood. And so I think that if you don't want to get pregnant, I would take precautions for some Capricorns, because there's a lot of pretty powerful, unexpected energy here that's going on. And there's a lot of influence of Venus here too, right? The other thing that you could do at this time, which would be favorable for those that want to maybe set up their own business, even though this is a total eclipse, it could be a time where maybe you planned for setting up your own business and maybe start reaching out to folks that can give you input of some sort with regards to how can you creatively do this. Because you've got the trine and so much favorable energy, this could be a good time to either plan for, right? Because we've got the Mars retrograde happening in Gemini, which kind of refers to writing, contracts, that sort of thing. It could be a time you could negotiate some kind of contracts with regards to maybe social media. And it ties into this maybe new idea that you have for your own business. It certainly would be a favorable time to decide to start up your own business, right? The other thing that we've got happening here is, of course, for some folks, some Capricorn folks, you still entertain Pluto. So Pluto's still going to be hanging around here for a little bit of time for some folks that have their sun or ascendant between 27 and 29 degrees of Capricorn. And it's just all about transformation. I've mentioned this in other videos as well. So that's another layer for some Capricorns, certainly not all. I think you can look forward to Capricorn, your new moon. So your new moon, Capricorn, will be in December. In fact, the 23rd of December of 2022. It's going to be at 1 degree of Capricorn. So this says new energies coming in. It's a new moon, a new start for you. So if you are organizing some things with regards to any of the areas I mentioned, look to a new start. Okay, let's just say you're going to do your own business. The 23rd of December would be a great time to have the launch of a new business, because that's your new moon, right, in Capricorn. All right, take care, Capricorn. I'm wishing you all the best. Aquarius. So Aquarius, this is your fourth house of home, your mother, your habits, your family to some extent. It can represent your family home that you were brought up in too, by the way. Now the thing is, so it's going to be highlighting those areas for you. And for some Aquarians, it might mean you completely changing up your home, where maybe unexpected you have to move from a home that you're in, or unexpectedly you make an announcement, I'm buying another house, and I'm selling this house. Or you're just literally getting another home somewhere. It could mean that too. But it could present with some challenges because this eclipse squares your sign, Aquarius. And on top of that, you're hosting Saturn in your sign too. Saturn, generally speaking, brings responsibilities to us. It also says stop. It also says there might be some delays. So with the square going on here, although it's not a direct hit with Saturn, you've got the influence of Saturn there. I would say anything to do with the home, just make sure you're following the rules. I always go back to Saturn and say the rules, the laws. And so say you're deciding you want to go and do some extensions in a home, or you unexpectedly get some money come in. You say, I want to just redo this home now. Saturn in your actual sign says, check out all the laws and regulations. And some Aquarians will benefit from that statement that I've just made. But certainly there's going to be some challenges that'll be presented to you where you're going to have to think outside the box at this time. Now, the other thing too, because it's the fourth house, and eclipses mean people can be eclipsed out of your life, or they can be eclipsed into your life, or you could have both things happen. You may have people unexpectedly leave your home. Perhaps you've got somebody living with you that you thought was going to be there for a while, and then they announce, no, I'm leaving. That could happen too, and maybe it's a good thing. Or unexpectedly, I mean, you could have someone like your mother have to come and live with you, and with the square, you have to negotiate how you're going to do that with that maybe other members, maybe your partner that lives with you in your home. Or you've got to make some adjustments in the home to accommodate your mother, because the fourth house represents your mother as well. But by extension, it can also talk to your family. So maybe you're going to have to be dealing with your family for some reason at this time. I would say just put your thinking cap on for some Aquarians. Think outside the box, and always try to take the higher road. This too will pass. Remember that as well. Now, just want to remind you, Aquarius, that you are going to be hosting Pluto starting next year in your sign. Now, for the next few years from 2023, we're really only looking at those Aquarians that are at the beginning of a degree or the ascendants. So really it's just going to be 0 to 1 degree, maybe 2 degrees for the next few years, starting in 2023, where Pluto will now be exerting its effects on the sign of Aquarius. So if you've got an ascendant in Aquarius, your sun in Aquarius, you'll only be affected directly 2023 and 2024 if it's at the beginning of Aquarius. And I have made a video on this already. I'll put the links below. You might want to watch that, Aquarius, just to get a heads up of the areas of life that may be affected for you. Okay. Take care, Aquarius. All right, Pisces. So Pisces, this is in your third house. And the third house is a lot of things too. Generally speaking, we speak of the third house as being a house of communications, any types of communications. It is also the house of siblings. It is our neighbors and neighborhood. It's sales and commerce. And it also refers to writing, right? So Gemini as a sign rules this house, the third house. And then, of course, Mercury as a planet rules it. So this says to me, there's going to be a lot of communications going on for you, Pisces. Or you're going to have to deal with a lot of communications at this time. Now, you've got a couple things happening in your sign. You do host this whole Jupiter retrograde at 29 degrees, right? At this eclipse. So this also speaks to perhaps some wrap up in some way. I was thinking with regards to some legal matters, because actually Jupiter can represent legal matters, but it can also refer to anything that's to do with foreign people or foreign places. But it's a culminating energy. So it'll play out in different ways for different Pisces individuals, but it will be a culminating energy here for you. And although it's not exactly conjunct Neptune, which is also in your sign at 24 degrees, 24 and 29 are not so far off. But we're talking about retrogrades here, right? So it might be for some fortunate Pisces that you get to dip back into your past as opposed to your future and look at some of your hopes and wishes, and you decide to plot and plan of how you can make your dreams come true. That could be the other thing that happens. You've got a sextile happening from this eclipse. So there's certainly going to be lots of opportunities coming in for you with regards to things that you may want to manifest at this time, right? Remember that Taurus is the master builder. It likes to manifest things. So, maybe go back and look at anything that if you do keep vision boards, remind yourself, go back to that vision board and take a look at it and say, what was it that I had in terms of my hopes and dreams for this year? Because we're talking now in November here at the end of the year, where you may be looking back on them and saying, how can I make things happen here? And at this eclipse, you may get some real help. Some opportunities will come in for you to help you see the future, but you may have to dip into the past to do it. Now, you will not have a direct influence necessarily of the Mars retrograde in Gemini. I see the Mars retrograde in Gemini also potentially helping you put things in place, negotiations of some sort behind the scene of whatever it is that you're doing. Maybe it's some sales or commercial venture for some Pisces that they're putting together as well. But Jupiter will be leaving Pisces completely for another 12 years. So you'll entertain Jupiter in about 12 years' time, coming up literally at the end of December, right? Then it'll go full into Aries for about 6 months. So these are just culminating energies for you. For those folks that are going through some kind of legal matters, you may have to have a second look at things, but you could also have some advisor come in as well that helps you put it all together and push it through, right? Okay. Good luck, Pisces. All right, so we're looking here now at Aries. And Aries, you have this eclipse happening in your second house. And what's interesting is the second house is actually ruled by Taurus. So there's a little bit more positive energy that's coming in for you here. You're also going to be hosting Jupiter full-time for 6 months, starting in January 2023. So, hey, you've got a lot of fun things and benefits coming your way, Aries, at least starting next year. Unless you had some significant things between 0 and 8 degrees of Aries, and then you have a double dip. For those folks that are Aries, that have something between 0 and 8 degrees, you've already had Jupiter conjuncting those points. They'll conjunct them again next year too. And I did a whole video on Jupiter and Aries, so feel free to check out the link below. I think you might benefit from that, Aries, to listen in. But the second house really represents our values, and especially the value of ourself. It also represents the money that we make. So for some Aries, whether they're choosing to let go of a certain income that they have in, or they have to let go of a certain income coming in, there will be a big change up in the money that you make. So some Aries may decide to leave a job, and it may be tied in with the fact that they don't feel they're being valued in the job, or they just don't value the job that they're in, and therefore the money that they're making doesn't have any meaning for them, right? Now, you have the Mars retrograde in Gemini sextiling your sign. So this could also be a time, if we look at tying in the second house in with the sextile opportunities with the Mars retrograde in Gemini, this could be a time of you negotiating more money for your value in the job that you do. So this could be triggered at this eclipse. I mean, the whole axis of Taurus and the opposite sign, Scorpio, is the money axis, right? Now, the other thing, too, the second house is possessions. So for some Aries, you may either decide to get rid of some of your possessions or have to get rid of some of your possessions for whatever reason. And of course, each of you will have your own reasons. It could have you accumulating and gaining unexpectedly some possessions coming in for you. It could even be, the 8th house typically is bonuses in that, but this is a pretty powerful eclipse. And so this is really affecting your monies. And I think it could also, because the sun is going to be in your opposite house, which is the 8th house of investments, there could be some pinging back and forth with regards to investments that you have and the money you make. So it could be that you decide to take some of the money that you make too and put more into your 401k, or that you just decide you want to save more. That could also be another action here that could happen for you. But look forward to Jupiter in 2023 for the first half of 2023, Aries, lighting you up and bringing benefits in for you, bringing in beneficial people. And certainly if you've got some big decisions that you've got to make and you need to seek out an advisor, I would say next year you could find that great lawyer, that great financial advisor, etc., etc. So that's something to really look forward to. Jupiter is a 12-year cycle, so you will have this come back 12 years from 2023, but that's something really positive to light up your life, Aries, to look forward to. Take care, Aries. All right, so that wraps up my take. I just want to remind you again that we all have free will. I'm just giving you my take on areas that I think might be affected in your life. You have the final say in your life. You decide what you want to do. And certainly if you want to discuss things back and forth, leave comments below. I love hearing from everybody. I wish everybody the best at this total eclipse. We will have some shakeups happening literally maybe on the earth, and shakeups happening with regards to people and politics in our life. There's not much we can do to prevent that, but hopefully this will give you some information and help you shore up the area of life that might be affected by you, that you can take, actions now. The other thing I wanted to mention was there are some years when people were born where Uranus actually was in Scorpio. So for those folks, you have an additional energy of Uranus, opposite Uranus at this time. Now you'll have to have your natal Uranus and Scorpio somewhere around the 16-degree mark to be directly affected. But I'll just give you some years and general dates here. We're looking at 1975. Uranus went into Scorpio. So this would have people with their natal Uranus potentially opposite this eclipse in Taurus, as well as the transiting Uranus. So this could have some extra unexpected, surprising events happen for those individuals. It went right the way through February 1981, and specifically we had the 16-degree mark of Scorpio happen at January to March 1978, November 1978, and then July, August 1979. So here we're looking at the specific months and years where we're revolving around this 16-degree mark. But I will say this, that I would give it an orb of at least 14 degrees to 18 degrees of Scorpio. If you were born with your Uranus there, this eclipse could really shake up your life. And it doesn't have to be a negative shake-up, but it's an extra layer of having a Uranus opposite Uranus. Might be a good time for those folks to get their charts done too. Always open to hearing from you. So please take care of yourself. You'll hear from me again. I'm making this video towards the end of June 2022, and so I can't predict exactly what's going to happen, but I will be talking about this to some extent, certainly in my November video. But we'll put things together between now and then, and I'll stay in touch with everybody. I'm also on my audio too, right? You can get me on audio. Spotify is the main. I put the link up there for you as well, for those that want to listen to me. Please take care of yourself. I'm sending out lots of positive energy for everyone at this eclipse. Take care. Lots of love.